For decades, the crown of global medicine rested pretty securely in the West, right? I mean, if you wanted the absolute bleeding edge of life-saving cures, you looked to Boston, maybe Basel. But right now, literally as we speak, that crown is quietly yet decisively changing hands. The new center of gravity? Well, it's Shanghai. It's Suzhou. Welcome to a completely new era of drug discovery. And welcome to this explainer. So ask yourself this. What if the worst diseases no longer Western? Seriously, think about that. We are living through a profound, permanent structural realignment of global power and drug discovery. This isn't just some passing industry trend, you know? It is an absolute explosion of innovation that's turning the pharmaceutical hierarchy completely upside down. Just look at this headline for a moment from South China Morning Post. This is the news behind today's video. Which company could become the Chinese Pfizer? Here are analysts' top picks. A boom in out-licensing agreements leads to a debate over which Chinese firms may be first to break into overseas markets with own brands. With that said, let's go straight to the intro.
The algorithm buries channels that show the truth like mine every single day. The only thing that fights back is you. One like, one subscribe, turn on the bell icon. That's how the truth about China survives on YouTube. Don't let it disappear. Thank you very much.
But okay, before we get into the billions of dollars and these fierce corporate battles, let's ground this dramatic shift in its fundamental mission. Because at the end of the day, this is really about accelerating breakthrough medicine for humanity. It's about getting better, life-saving medicine to people who desperately need it, and getting it to them faster than ever before. That's the real core of this documentary-style explainer, and it's basically the driving force behind all the data we're about to explore. So exactly how is this happening? Well, it comes down to this fascinating concept called innovation arbitrage. See, while legacy systems in the West are kind of bogged down by these slow, incredibly expensive processes, China's R&D engine is just bypassing them completely. Just consider these numbers for a second. Drug discovery costs, 30 to 40% lower. Clinical filings, 50 to 70% faster. And ultimately, what this means is that next-generation therapies are reaching global phase 2 development a full 2 to 3 years faster. Honestly, it's a scale of speed and efficiency the world has quite literally never seen before. The sheer dominance of this shift is just staggering, particularly when we look at antibody-drug conjugates, or ADCs. If you're not familiar, think of ADCs as highly sophisticated laser-guided missiles, specifically designed to attack cancer cells. And based on recent global industry licensing data, China currently accounts for 90% of all global ADC licensing. 90%. The entire rest of the world combined makes up just that tiny 10% sliver. It's crazy. If a pharmaceutical company isn't sourcing these assets from China right now, they're essentially bringing a knife to a missile fight. Because of all this, industry experts are actually calling this a DeepSeek moment in medicine. And the absolutely crucial point here is that China has fundamentally transitioned. They are no longer just a cheap, fast follower making generic copies of Western science, right? They have become a true frontier innovator. And as the experts are noting, they are decisively defeating the absolute best the West has to offer. And hey, if you want concrete proof of that defeat, you really don't have to look any further than the landmark Harmony 2 trial. This was a dramatic head-to-head clinical battle in lung cancer. In one corner, you had Merck's Keytruda, literally the best-selling drug in the entire world. And in the other corner, Abcastle's ivonescimab, which is a Chinese-developed bispecific. The result? China won. The Chinese drug proved clinically superior to the ultimate Western blockbuster. This readout didn't just change the standard of care for patients, it caused this unprecedented, fundamental shift in exactly how global capital views Chinese science, which naturally brings us to an absolutely eye-watering figure. $135.7 billion. That was the total value of outbound licensing deals signed by Chinese drug makers in 2025 alone. To really put that into perspective, it represents a full third of all global licensing spending. Western big pharma companies are opening their checkbooks like we have never seen before, mostly because they're now fundamentally dependent on the Chinese pipeline just to survive their own looming patent expirations. So, what does a billion-dollar buy-in frenzy actually look like on the ground? Well, based on deal announcements from just the first half of 2026, it looks pretty wild. AstraZeneca committed $18.5 billion to CSPC Pharmaceutical to secure access to obesity and diabetes treatments. Bristol-Myers Squibb, they inked the $15.2 billion alliance with Jiangsu Hengrui. And Pfizer dropped $10.5 billion to partner with Innovent Biologics on cancer programs. We are talking about the absolute biggest names in Western medicine sprinting to secure Chinese innovation. But notice how the actual structure of these deals is rapidly evolving. We aren't just seeing simple cash for drugs anymore. Take that $15.2 billion Bristol-Myers Squibb and Hengrui deal, for example. It features this new dynamic called bi-directional integration. Basically, BMS was so desperate for Hengrui's oncology assets that they actually swapped 4 of their own immunology programs just to get a piece of the action. They're treating Hengrui as an absolute peer innovator on the global stage, not just a vendor you buy from, but a true peer. Let's take a quick look at the titans actually leading this charge, the real platform powerhouses. You've got CSPC Pharmaceutical, who has basically turned drug delivery into a fine art with their liquid gel technology, making once-monthly injections a reality for the massive obesity market. Then there's Hansoh Pharmaceutical, kind of the tactical genius of the group, becoming the very first to launch a China-developed lung cancer drug internationally by securing regulatory approvals in the UK and EU. And of course, Innovent Biologics is just dominating metabolic diseases and multi-specific antibodies. These highly agile companies are becoming absolutely essential partners for any firm that wants to compete globally. So what exactly are the next steps for these rising Chinese giants? Well, they're executing a highly sophisticated strategy known as the NewCo expansion model, and it's brilliant. Instead of just selling a drug outright for cash, Chinese biotechs license the asset to a brand new venture-backed entity in the US or Europe. They retain a massive equity stake. They let Western venture capital funds pay for those staggeringly expensive phase 3 trials, and then they launch globally under strict FDA and EMA standards. It's a masterful strategy, really. It keeps the intellectual control in China while harvesting enormous global profits. Now, of course, all this incredible business expansion is happening against the backdrop of complex global politics with hurdles like the US Biosecure Act. Yet, the business resilience here is just astounding. Chinese firms are simply navigating all that geopolitical noise by building their own localized infrastructure. B1 Medicines is a great example. They're actively building an $800 million manufacturing facility right on American soil in New Jersey. They're just adapting to the political landscape to ensure patients get the medicines they need without any interruption. And really, that brings us right back to our overarching mission. Because the reality is that China's rise in biopharma isn't just a victory for one nation, it's a massive win for the entire world. By offering a lower cost of goods, these highly effective therapies are easing immense fiscal pressure on single-payer healthcare systems globally. They're accelerating the delivery of life-saving cancer therapies, and we're seeing genuine breakthroughs in chronic diseases, like that $12.5 billion deal between Hengrui and GSK to combat COPD. At the end of the day, we're talking about better efficacy and lower costs for desperate patients worldwide. We are truly watching the birth of a new era. The speed, the scale, and the sheer clinical brilliance of what is happening right now is completely rewriting the history of medicine. Think about this. The very next blockbuster drug you or a loved one takes will very likely have a designed in China label baked right into its DNA. The innovation factor is already here, so it leaves us with one massive question. Will China be the sole leader in global medicine by 2030? Honestly, based on the sheer speed and scale of this shift, I'll let you decide for yourself. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I would absolutely love to read your take on this whole situation. Also, let us know if you have any ideas for our next documentary-style deep dive. If you found these explainers insightful, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss an update on the global shifts changing our world. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.